Now, welcome back. So, Real Madrid are 3 points clear of Barcelona in La Liga after 22 games played. They beat Atletico in the Madrid derby over the weekend 1-0 at the Bernabeu, courtesy of a Karim Benzema goal. Zinedine Zidane has well and truly righted the ship, it would seem. Dermot Corrigan of Independent Newspapers is with us in Madrid. How you doing?
Hey Joe, how's it going?
Great to have you with us. First league loss for Atletico at the Bernabeu in 7 years, no less. Kind of extraordinary to read that.
Yeah, Atletico have had a pretty good go of it under Simeone in recent years. They've really put it up to Madrid and matched them, not so much in the Champions League where they keep falling off just at the penalty shootout or extra time or whatever, but in La Liga they've had an excellent record. But it ended at the weekend. Madrid were much the better team, especially in the second half, and Madrid are on the up now, whereas Atletico really look to be on the down at the moment.
I was reading a piece by your colleague Sid Lowe, and he was talking about the job that Zidane is doing at the moment. And he said of their win and of their form generally, there is a seriousness about Madrid this season that means that while they may not always sparkle, there's a sense of invulnerability about them right now. They've played 4-4-2, they've played 5 in midfield, a man behind the forwards, 3 across the front. One thing that doesn't change, though, is a level of concentration and competitiveness and their physical condition too. And they're not conceding many goals, only 13 in 22 games. So it seems there is a bit of steel, actually, as opposed to razzmatazz about this team now.
Yeah, for sure. When Zidane left last season, pretty much the team took the season off. You know, they had 2 different coaches with Lopetegui coming in first and then Solari. But they made, awful mistakes, especially at the back, maybe symbolised by Sergio Ramos, who had a lot of slip-ups. His concentration wasn't good. Remember, he got himself booked against Ajax in the first leg because he wanted to miss the second leg, and then they got knocked out of the Champions League. And similar stuff was happening at the back for them all through the year. But since Zidane came back in last summer, he's really straightened them all out. Has everybody focused, everybody working hard. Even the forwards are working hard, and those who don't, like maybe Gareth Bale, are not in the team at the weekend. And yeah, 1-0 to Real Madrid. You know, the Bernabeu usually likes to see attacking football. It likes to see their team flying forward. It likes to see skill and flamboyance and taking risks, all that type of stuff. But Zidane has got everybody happy enough to go 1-0 up, then sit back and defend, make sure they don't make any mistakes at the back, and it's working for them so far.
And it's not being critiqued in the press or in the stands. They are happy enough to go with this approach.
Yeah, it is kind of strange. You know, it's because it's Zidane. I guess if your name was Rafa Benitez or Julian Lopetegui, you'd have a lot more trouble trying to convince people that 1-0 in a game was enough, that you just get the 3 points and you move on to the next weekend. But because it's Zidane, and because last season was so bad, because there were so many embarrassments, losing, even in the summer they lost 7-3 to Atletico in a friendly game, but even still that was an embarrassment. The Ajax game, beaten 5-0, 5-1 by Barcelona, all these type of results in recent years. So the fact that Zidane has come in and has got them tight, has got them running together, has got them winning games, is enough for him to have a pretty unassailable position at the moment. He can do whatever he wants, really.
Yeah, I do remember that 7-3 loss to Atletico about, 6-7 months ago now, and all the headlines, historic humiliation, a ragdoll thrown about by a hurricane. Simeone has taught Zidane a lesson, and his attitude, Zidane's attitude, that was everyone just stay calm here, and obviously things have turned out okay. It is an amazing thing, really, for those of us who still remember and cherish the memory almost of Zidane as a player. It is extraordinary that that player has become this manager.
Yeah, for sure. I think we remember a lot of Zidane as maybe from later on in his career, I do anyway, from when he was at the Bernabeu, and he would come up with these amazing bits of skill to win a game on his own, maybe, or with France, where he would pull them out of a difficult situation on his own. But as a coach, he seemed maybe to have been formed during his earlier years in Serie A at Juventus, when he had 3 years under Marcello Lippi there. And that was all about, the structure of the team, building from the back, really Italian-style pragmatism approach to going about winning games. And that seems to be Zidane, the coach. Even during his first spell, early on in his time, he got the defence right. He put Casemiro in front of the back four. When the first time they won the Champions League, they drew 0-0 against Man City. They won 1-0 with a deflected goal in the second leg. He was happy enough to find a way to win. That hasn't always gone down so well with some of the people around the club. Maybe Florentino Perez would prefer a more exciting style of football and keeps adding more attacking players. But Zidane over time has got the power to do what he wants. And at the moment, that is go 1-0 up and see out the game.
And he didn't bring in, unless I'm forgetting somebody very obvious here, obviously they were linked with Pogba during the summer. This is still last season's team. He wasn't allowed to add dramatically to the squad.
No, well, Eden Hazard was the big signing of the
course.
summer, but he's been injured a lot. You know, he's was out at the start. He missed the start of the season. Then he came back. I think he's only got 2 goals. Then he's been out again for the last 3 months or so. So it's easy enough to forget about him, and they have done it without him. They've found a way to win games. You know, Ramos has scored. Casemiro got 2 goals against Sevilla. Varane got 2 goals against Getafe. Danny Carvajal doesn't normally score. He's been scoring as well. So they haven't got those, apart from Benzema, they don't have those big name attackers who are, you know, banging in the goals or who are going on solo runs, beating 3 players and knocking it in the top corner. You know, Ronaldo is gone, so they have to find another way to do things. And in fairness to Zidane, he's doing it.
That Italian grounding in the game you mentioned is very interesting, because I did want to ask you if we know more about Zidane's methods, if players have maybe over the last while talked publicly about how he shapes a team or what he does, or is he on the training ground every day drilling teams over and over, you know, Antonio Conte style, if we use the Juventus example? Because very memorably, I'm sure you're well aware of this and people listening will be as well, that Champions League final where there was a camera in the dressing room at half time, that spoke of a manager who offered very little tactical detail. I mean, in effect, from memory, he just told them there's space out wide, get the ball down the channels and swing in a few crosses. I mean, it was kind of like the escape to victory pre-match plan, really, you know, just whip it in there for Bobby Moore. So have we any sense of Zidane's day-to-day approach with the team and how hands-on he is in terms of drilling them over and over again, or is this more of a kind of vague attitude?
Yeah, I don't think you're too far off. I'm not sure I'd use the word vague. What he seems to do, or from talking to the players, the little bits that people tell you, is that he is very simple with his messages, and it tends to be stuff like shoot more, or, you know, keep it onto your right foot, or, you know, don't cut back inside all the time. Just little messages like that people can take on board, because when he speaks to us in the press room, what he repeats again and again is that he thinks that Madrid have the most talented players in the world. And if they work as hard as the other team, if they concentrate as much, if they're as focused, if they don't make silly mistakes, then in the end their quality will out and they will win most of the games. So he puts a lot of concentration on their intensity, on physically being right. I don't think in training they do maybe like Conte or like Klopp or Guardiola, where they have these moves planned where they all know where they need to be 4 moves in advance and they move around the pitch as a block. It's not so much like that. But they do all have to run really fast and tackle as hard as they can. And that seems to be, I know that wasn't maybe Zidane's forte as a player, although he was a strong guy. He wasn't somebody who covered every blade of grass. But he wants his team to do that as much as possible. And at the moment, they're following him.
Gareth Bale, we should mention if people are wondering, he was left out of the squad for the derby despite being fit. Yeah,
it's been another strange season for Bale and Zidane. I think if they both could have found a way to move on last summer, they would have done, as maybe we've discussed before. Bale is still there. He did come back into the team in December. He played a couple of games since then, but Zidane has decided that maybe Bale doesn't give that 100% commitment, that 100% aggression. If he doesn't need him, then he won't use him. When players are injured or when there's a specific role that he wants for him, he will put him into the team. But yeah, their personal relationship hasn't improved, it's fair to say.
Okay. Well, it's all very interesting what's going on there, and Manchester City fans will be interested to hear about the new Madrid they'll be facing in the Champions League. I'm sure Liverpool fans listening in are very curious about the state of play at Atletico. Certainly at the Bernabeu at the weekend, Real Madrid fans were singing and encouraging Diego Simeone to go nowhere. They now, they love him. Atletico are in 5th place. It seems like things aren't quite clicking. I'm reading reports of maybe a feeling Simeone's time at the club could be coming to an end after 8 unbelievable years. And that maybe is the point, that he has set a standard which is very, very difficult for Atletico Madrid to continually meet. So what's going on there? They're in 5th place. They're 13 points off Real Madrid.
Yeah, for sure. I'd agree 100% with what you say, that Simeone has done an amazing job at Atletico and has set a bar that is almost impossible to meet every year. They made a huge effort over the last couple of years to try and win the Champions League, especially last year when they had the Champions League at home at the Wanda Metropolitano here in Madrid. Kept a lot of their older players and spent a lot of money on other players to try to have the best possible team for that day. That didn't work out. Ronaldo intervened in the last 16 with a hat-trick. And then last summer, a lot of those guys left. Griezmann went to Barcelona, Godin, Felipe Luis, Juanfran, the old defenders, they all left. Guys like Rodrigo went to Man City, Lucas Hernandez went to Bayern Munich. They basically had to rip out their team and start again. And the rebuilding process hasn't gone so well. João Felix, he spent a lot of money on him. He hasn't been able to perform inside Simeone's system. He's injured at the minute. They have a lot of injuries. Kieran Trippier, the England right back, he was injured. He just had a groin operation. Just today, the news came out about that. We weren't sure what was up, why he missed the game at the weekend, but he's going to be out of the Liverpool games as well now. So a mixture of most of their best players leaving and those that they still have being injured means that it's the worst season of Atletico, of Simeone's time in charge of Atletico, for sure.
Okay, so it's a fairly simple answer to the question, but with no easy solutions for Simeone. So that puts Liverpool as really firm favourites for that game. Yeah,
like when the draw was made, people, Atletico fans were thinking, well, Liverpool's run can't go on forever. They're bound to run out of steam at some stage, and maybe some of our newer players like João Felix will settle in. We'll get some of our guys back from injury. As time has gone on, the weeks have gone on, there's been less optimism over that. And you're talking about a miracle at this stage. Some kind of Atletico have had some bad luck in Europe over the seasons, losing to Madrid in those finals. They'd hope that something might go their way. But at this stage, they're hoping for, act of God or something is the only way that you can see them beating Liverpool. And Dermot, what has Simeone's demeanour been like in the midst of all this? We know he's pretty much the highest paid manager in world football. Probably one of the reasons he has stayed there despite undoubted offers to go elsewhere. He has seen the new stadium being built, so there was a sense that this was a club really going places. But when your actual team is asset stripped, that's very demoralising. So his demeanour, his reaction to all this, and also the other side, I presume the club still want to keep him. They can't blame him for this crisis. Yeah, the club, the president of the club and the chief executive and everybody 100% want to keep him because he's the screen that stops everybody looking to see what's really going on behind the scenes at Atletico, or if he were to leave and it was to fall apart, they'd be in big trouble. Simeone himself has, because he's an Atletico fan, he was there as a player in two spells. He really does love the club and he has a real connection with the fans and with some of the players who have stayed. In public anyway, he's been very, I wouldn't say upbeat, but he's at least put on a brave face on it. He spoke last week, just before the derby, about how he stays awake at night. He can't sleep thinking about what team he's going to pick. He's tried different tactical setups. He still appears to be giving everything to try and turn it around, to try and make the best of a difficult situation. He does occasionally remind people, I think, that Atletico's real rivals should be Valencia, Sevilla, teams like that, rather than Madrid or Barcelona. Over time, that's maybe not so much the case because their budget is now a lot bigger than Valencia or Sevilla. They're kind of have moved ahead of them, even if they haven't caught up with Madrid and Barca. But Simeone doesn't give the impression of somebody who's going to go somewhere, but you wonder, does he think maybe he should have gone to Chelsea before? Or you look at Inter Milan this season where Conte is, that's another of his former teams. Conte's had money to spend and has a new broom there. It would have been an opportunity for Simeone, but as you say, he gets really well paid at Atletico. He likes life in Madrid. He's got a second family that he started here with his second partner, and don't see him going anywhere for the moment anyway. Okay. Meanwhile, a check-in in Barcelona. They're 17-year-old wonder kids doing things. So tell us about this guy. I was watching him on YouTube. He looks really special. I mean, for his age, I know he's the youngest scorer in the club's history. He scored against, I think it was Osasuna. He was still 16. And Wayne Rooney emerged as a 16-year-old built like a man in many respects. This guy, when he's walking off a pitch next to Gerard Piqué as a 16-year-old, he looks 16. But they've never been a place where you had to be a giant to fit in perfectly well. He looks really special. Yeah, he's a super talented kid. He took his goals really well at the weekend. He maybe gone off the boil a little bit over the last couple of months. The weekend was super. Like when he arrived on the scene in September, scored that goal against Osasuna, everyone was like, this is amazing. It was a big run by the Spanish Federation to make sure he was qualified to play for Spain because he was born overseas and spent most of his life in Spain, but they wanted to make sure that they got him for the Spanish national team. Was in and out of the team maybe under Valverde. Since Setien has come in, possibly because he's got few other options with Luis Suarez injured and Dembele injured as well. He's turned to Ansu Fati, but he's clearly a guy for the future. They don't want to burn him out. Maybe they want to try and hold on to him because he is so young, and as you say, he is physically he's still growing. He still has to mature a lot. connection with Messi is really good. Messi set up both of his goals at the weekend, and you can see with Messi that sometimes when players come into the team, whether youngsters or even big money players from other clubs, you wonder whether Messi rates them or not. You know, sometimes you think, why isn't he passing the ball to whether it's Dembele or Coutinho, or why isn't he trying to pick those guys out? Whereas with Ansu Fati, you get the feeling that he is looking to put him into position, that he trusts him, that Ansu Fati can read what he's going to do, and then Messi can play the ball into his path. Another connection between Messi and this guy Ansu Fati is that Messi's brother is his agent, so the Messi family have a stake in him succeeding. But that just shows you as well that they've earmarked this guy as somebody who is the real deal. Whether it's asking a lot for him to win games at the minute, and maybe they're going to have to rely on him in the Champions League with all the injuries. But long term, he's the best player to come out of La Masia. You could say maybe since Messi, the best attacking player to come out since Messi, is fair to say.
Yeah, okay. Ansu Fati, 2 goals in their 2-1 win at home to Levante in the Liga on Sunday. As for Quique Setien, they lost 2-0 away to Valencia, I think, before the weekend. So we had Miguel Delaney on when he was announced. Miguel had sat down and done a big interview with him for The Independent maybe 18 months ago. Very impressed with him. This guy seemed to come across really well. Obviously, philosophically incredibly aligned with Barcelona, maybe without the CV to match, although as we know Barcelona don't necessarily go for big name managers when they hire him. So early impressions, Dermot, of how he's handling that step up to a global super club?
Yeah, it's been really interesting to watch it. I was at that game at Mastella and listened to him afterwards, and he's still struggling a little bit to get his ideas across to the players because, and Miguel has written about it, and it came across in what a lot of people have been saying, that he's a true believer. He's a radical, sticks to his ideas and really believes in that this is the best way to play football. And if you keep playing this way, then you will win. And, that has worked out for people like Guardiola before at Barcelona. But it's one thing to be able to talk that way and to galvanize players. And at Betis and Las Palmas, he had a certain amount of success and had some big one-off results, but ended up losing. The fans at both of those teams ended up getting a bit frustrated with his obduracy or his obstinacy in always trying to play the same way, even when the circumstances were more difficult, and they had some bad defeats, and he ended up being fired from both of those jobs. So we're still going to have to see. It's difficult to come into any club mid-season, especially at Barcelona, and especially if you're trying to introduce this new philosophy or to change what the players are doing. Some of the players seem to have taken to it. Busquets has been very complimentary of him. Messi seems to be on board from what we're hearing. You look at others like De Jong in midfield, he just seems unsure of what he's supposed to be doing. And when Setien was asked about De Jong, he kind of stopped a little bit and said, well, it's difficult sometimes. Maybe it's my fault for not being able to explain properly what I'm trying to do, or maybe he just hasn't taken it on board yet. I'm sure he will. He's a very talented player. And all of that is fine, but Barca don't have very much time. They're slipping behind Madrid in the title race. They've got Napoli coming up in the Champions League in a couple of weeks, who are coming into some decent form themselves. So, everybody loves Setien when he was unveiled, or most people did around the camp now. A lot of talk about Johan Cruyff and the philosophy and getting back to their values. That's all well and good, but if results don't follow pretty quickly, if they keep losing it when they go away to Valencia, then they're going to be in trouble. And they're back at Setien's old club Betis at the weekend, where there's a lot of people who will be happy enough to beat him again. So that's going to be a very interesting one to watch on Sunday. Okay,
well, they're 3 points off Madrid at the moment, and as you said, Napoli to come in the Champions League on the 25th of February. Manchester City will play Real Madrid on the 26th. City are a tricky team to talk about at the moment. Even the game on Sunday isn't a reflection of what actually happened. They're 30 shots to Spurs' 3, and it looks like a comprehensive 2-0 defeat. So against Real Madrid, a lot of us haven't seen much of Madrid. La Liga has kind of almost gone out of the general ether since it's gone off Sky Sports in some ways. Do you make Madrid favourites to go through against City, Dermot?
Again, I'd be similar. I'd see a bit of City, but wouldn't be watching them every week, whereas I'd be at the Bernabeu. And the feeling here is that Madrid are just coming into form at the right time, and that everybody, especially around Madrid, likes to see Guardiola doing not so well, really, at the Bernabeu. They're happy enough to see him slipping. So when Mourinho was able to beat Pep at the weekend, as Zidane was able to beat Simeone, there was a real feeling that this game is just coming around at the perfect time for Madrid, that they're clicking into form, while City, maybe the wheels are coming off a bit, and they've got some players back from injury. But just the the narrative or the momentum at both clubs is going in different directions. So from here in Spain, Madrid are seen as pretty big favourites to be able to knock out City, which they'd be delighted about.
Okay. Just one last question, given that you've been over in Madrid for a couple of years now and covering football for many years. The Madrid derby, where is this if we have some kind of a spectrum of the Merseyside derby, which is traditionally quite friendly, and you might see blue and red jerseys side by side. And if we, at the other end of the spectrum, we have Celtic Rangers. Where are we in terms of hatred? What's the nature of the Madrid derby?
It was somewhere in the middle, I'd say. It was up until before Simeone arrived, Atletico hadn't beaten Madrid in a derby for, they went 13 years, I think, without winning one derby. And Madrid used to just laugh at them. They unveiled banners with wanted a dignified rival to play against. Since Simeone came back, and with Simeone's personality and everything, much more of a bite came into it. Atletico fans were more proud of themselves. They put it up to them. Madrid didn't like losing to them at all, and were able to lord it over them for the Champions League games. But there was still quite a testy kind of rivalry to it. But you don't get too many fans. Like there was only 80 official away supporters at the game at the weekend. Like there's more than 1,000 police and security and all at the game. There's big security around it. But there's very few away fans, and they're up in one corner of the ground, you trying to make as much noise as possible, but you don't really hear it. A bit because of the culture in Spain is not so many away fans to be there, so it's not that different from another home game, really. Fans really want to win it. The home fans really want to win it. They're more up for it. They really enjoyed taunting Simeone, as you mentioned earlier on before it. But compared to a Rangers Celtic or a Liverpool Everton, the atmosphere around the stadium, even compared to a Clásico, maybe just because it's got such a global focus, or maybe the Clásico, you feel it's a bigger event than the derby. But Saturday was, Madrid were very, very happy about it, and they enjoyed the victory, but you didn't have the feeling of a huge event either inside the stadium or around it before or afterwards.
So just 80 away fans. I know there's not that tradition of away fans. I just thought, look, it's a big country and fans don't want to travel, but for the derbies there'd be more. So the allocation was 80, or could more fans have gone if they were bothered?
Well, in theory, you can apply for more than that, maybe up to 1,000 or so, like the away end. I'm just thinking of what normally happens at the Madrid games. But Atletico fans, they just don't want to go to the Bernabeu to see it. It doesn't really come into their heads. The people who traditionally might have gone also would have been maybe more of the hardcore supporters, and they're on the out with the authorities. There's been a clampdown on ultras culture, whether the people are violent or not. There's been quite a clampdown on them on getting the chants out of the stadium because of some of the unsavory stuff that people have been saying. I do remember that the one derby that was amazing, really, was the Copa del Rey final when Atletico won at the Bernabeu in 2013. That was half and half in the stadium, and because it was a neutral ground for the Bernabeu, and that was amazing. The Atletico fans, they took it over. They won the game in the end. Mourinho got sent off. Ronaldo got sent off. Simeone won. It was a fantastic occasion, but that doesn't generally happen. The idea of coming over and taking over your fans' ground and winning at it, which, in Everton will be delighted if they got to do that at Anfield at some stage, or Celtic or Rangers will be delighted as well. Doesn't happen so much between Atletico and Madrid.
That's very, very interesting. And very last one. Traditionally, like the makeup of the fans, obviously Franco and the monarchy, you associate Real Madrid. Is it like a working class thing, Atletico fans versus the elites of Madrid, or is it all a bit of a mishmash at this stage?
It's quite a mishmash. Like the current king is actually an Atletico fan. The new king who came in a couple of years ago. I think, his dad was a Madrid fan, and maybe it was like a balancing act that they decided, whether for whatever reason, that he was an Atletico fan. But it's funny, if you try to watch a game in the centre of the city, if you're looking for a football-related bar, you'll often find that there's more likely to be Atletico scarves behind the bars, or the Madrid have a lot of fans all around Spain, and more than something like 30% of all Spaniards identify as Real Madrid fans. Inside the capital, inside the ring road, or the Real Madrid part of the real centre of Madrid, you'd probably find more Atletico fans than Madrid fans historically. Over time, lots of kids follow Ronaldo or Sergio Ramos or whatever, so it's diluted, and it's basically 50-50 now, I'd say, amongst young kids. But whereas outside Spain, in Ireland, I guess there's a lot more Real Madrid fans than Atletico fans, or in America or Dubai or wherever. But in the capital for the game, I guess maybe going to the stadium is not the best place to see that rivalry. If you went to your local neighbourhood bar, you might get 50-50 and get a bit more of a ribbon going on, or a bit more slagging going on. But so Atletico, they hold themselves pretty highly up in that regard.
Okay, the true Madrid fans almost, yeah. Listen, Dermot Corrigan, as ever, a pleasure of independent newspapers. Thanks, Dermot.
Cheers, Joe. Enjoying it.